I thought death brought closure. I thought burying a man meant he was gone for good. But as the rain fell that gray October morning, drenching my black veil and the coffin that held my husband, or what I thought was my husband, I realized closure was just a cruel illusion. His name was Daniel Cross, a man so charming that even the priest paused during the eulogy, visibly shaken by how young, how perfect, how undeserving of death he seemed. Around me, people sniffled. His colleagues whispered about his kindness. His mother clutched her rosary, muttering prayers through trembling lips. And me? I stood still, cold, empty, watching the man I loved sink 6 feet beneath the earth, unaware that this was only the first burial. Daniel was the kind of husband women envied me for. Attentive, successful, the embodiment of stability. But now that I think about it, his stability was rehearsed, like lines from a play. His smile never quite reached his eyes. His phone was always face down. He had a dozen stories for every late night, and I, the dutiful wife, never dared question them until I saw her. She stood across the graveyard, a woman in a deep red coat, soaked to the bone, eyes fixed on the coffin like she'd lost something too. Our gazes met for a fraction of a second, and the way she looked at me, pity, pain, and something close to guilt, made my stomach twist. When the last handful of dirt fell, she turned away without a word, and I knew somehow this funeral was a beginning, not an end. The days that followed blurred into each other. Sympathy cards, casseroles, phone calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had advice on grief, as if loss came with a manual. But grief wasn't my biggest problem. It was curiosity. It started small. A call from the insurance company saying there were discrepancies in Daniel A.'s life policy. Then the bank statements that didn't match his supposed salary. Then the discovery that his company, Cross and Haynes Investments, didn't actually exist. Not legally anyway. I tried to rationalize everything. Maybe it was identity theft. Maybe someone had hacked his accounts. But the truth came crashing down when a man in a gray suit knocked on my door 3 nights later. "Mrs. Cross?" "Yes." "I'm Detective Miles. I need to ask you a few questions about your husband." His tone was polite, but his eyes were sharp, scanning my hallway, the framed wedding photo, the urn of white lilies on the table. I invited him in, heart hammering. "We've been trying to contact Daniel Cross for several months," he began, flipping open a file. "He's connected to a fraud investigation, large-scale financial laundering across multiple accounts. His death complicates things." I stared at him, my mouth dry. "You think Daniel was involved in that?" The detective hesitated, then placed a photo on the table. My blood froze. It was Daniel, smiling, alive, dated 3 weeks after his supposed death. "That's impossible," I whispered. He died in a car crash. I saw the body." "Did you identify it yourself?" the detective asked. The question hit me like a slap. I hadn't. They told me it was him. Same build, same car, same ring on the finger. The body was burned beyond recognition. The coroner confirmed it. But I never looked. I never knew. That night, sleep refused to come. Every shadow in the house felt alive. Every creak in the floorboards whispered his name. Daniel had always said, "Secrets die with the dead," but what if he never died? What if his secrets were still breathing somewhere out there, watching me? By morning, I made a decision. If the police thought my husband faked his death, I'd find the proof myself. Maybe it was denial, maybe rage. I can't tell the difference anymore, but I needed answers. I started with his study. Daniel kept everything meticulously organized, files alphabetized, drawers locked, nothing out of place. But behind a row of investment ledgers, I found a plain black notebook. No label, just initials carved inside the cover, DAC. Inside were lists, coded entries, initials, transaction IDs, foreign account numbers, and one name written over and over again, Elena, the same woman in the red coat. The next day, I found her. It wasn't hard. Daniel's secret life was like a trail of breadcrumbs once I knew where to look. Elena worked at a private gallery downtown, small, exclusive, the kind of place Daniel used to take clients. When I walked in, she looked up from behind the counter, startled, pale. "Can I help you?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I just studied her. Soft brown hair, trembling hands, a sadness that mirrored my own. "You knew my husband," I said finally. Her eyes widened. "Your husband?" "Daniel Cross." Silence. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "He told me he wasn't married." The words sliced through me like glass. Before I could respond, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You shouldn't be here. If Daniel's really dead, then you need to leave this alone. He's not who you think he was." "Then tell me who he was," I demanded. She hesitated, glancing toward the door, then whispered, "He called himself David Allen when I knew him. He said his wife died years ago, and he made me promise never to contact anyone if something happened to him." Her hands shook as she reached under the counter and pulled out a small USB drive. "He left this for me. Said I'd know when to use it. I think it's meant for you." Before I could ask anything else, she shoved it into my hand and turned away, tears filling her eyes. That night, I sat in the dark with my laptop open, staring at the USB drive. The house was silent, the world outside asleep. I plugged it in, and a single folder appeared. "If you re-seeing this, I am sorry." My pulse thundered. I opened it. Videos, dozens of them, each time-stamped, each labeled with a date, stretching months after his supposed death. In the first video, Daniel sat in a dimly lit room, staring straight into the camera. "If you're watching this, it means you've found out," he said, voice low, tired. "I didn't mean for things to go this far, but there are people who will come for you now." Then he smiled. That same charming, deadly smile I'd once fallen for. "I love you, Anna. But you were never supposed to bury me." When the first video ended, I just sat there, frozen, numb, unable to move or breathe. Daniel's face lingered on the screen, still smiling, still lying even after death. And all I could think was, how long had I been living with a stranger? The clock read 3:17 a.m. The rain tapped softly against the windows like an impatient whisper urging me to press next. So I did. The second video began. Daniel again. Same dark room, same heavy eyes. But this time he looked different. Tired, unshaven, hunted. "If they told you I'm dead," he said, "don't believe it. It's not safe. They'll come for you next. I tried to protect you, Anna, but I made mistakes I can't undo." Then static. Then nothing. I replayed it again and again, until my eyes blurred. Every word sounded rehearsed, yet there was something real in his voice, a kind of fear I'd never heard before. And behind that fear, guilt. I couldn't sleep after that. I stayed up till dawn, watching the remaining videos one by one. Each clip was a breadcrumb, fragments of Daniel's secret life scattered across months, cities, and lies. He talked about a man named Hale, about deals that went south, about something he called the consortium. He mentioned a safe house in Bristol, a coded ledger, and then always me. "You were my only truth," he said in one recording, "but the truth can't survive the life I built." By sunrise, I wasn't just mourning a husband. I was preparing to meet a ghost. Detective Miles returned that afternoon. He looked at me like he already knew I'd been digging. "You found something," he said, without preamble. I hesitated. Maybe. Mrs. Cross. Anna, I corrected. Call me Anna. The woman you're talking about doesn't exist anymore. He blinked, then sighed. Anna, I need honesty from you. We've confirmed that the man buried last week wasn't Daniel Cross. It was a John Doe. Same height, same ring, planted dental records. Someone staged his death. The room tilted. So Daniel's alive, I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he placed a photo on the table. Grainy, captured from a traffic camera. Daniel. Walking down a London street 2 weeks ago. The same man I buried. After he left, I sat alone with that photo. My pulse felt like thunder in my ears. I couldn't stay still. I needed to see that safe house Daniel mentioned. The one in Bristol. By nightfall, I packed a small bag, downloaded the map from the video metadata, and drove off. The motorway stretched endlessly, the storm chasing me like a shadow. Somewhere near Swindon, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I ignored it. Then another. Then a text. Stop looking. He's not yours anymore. My stomach turned. No name, no sender. Just those 7 words glowing in the dark. I nearly turned back. But then I remembered Elena's trembling voice. You were never supposed to bury him. I kept driving. The safe house was an abandoned cottage at the edge of a forest. Overgrown, half-rotted, but locked tight. I broke a window and slipped inside. Dust clung to the air. The smell of old smoke lingered. There were traces of someone, half-eaten food, a mattress, a map pinned to the wall with red strings connecting London, Paris, Geneva, and one line drawn straight to me. And in the center of the map, a small note. Trust no one, not even Miles. My blood ran cold. I heard a noise then. The soft creak of floorboards behind me. I turned. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, dressed in black, a mask covering half his face. For a heartbeat, I thought it was Daniel. The same shoulders, the same stance. Daniel? I whispered. The man didn't answer. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. I backed up, heart racing. Who are you? He raised his hand, not a weapon, but a phone. He pressed play. And from the speaker came Daniel's voice. Anna, if you're hearing this, run. They found me. The man dropped the phone and lunged. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and swung. It shattered against his arm. He staggered back just long enough for me to bolt through the door and into the woods. Branches tore at my face. Rain soaked my clothes. And the dark swallowed everything behind me. I didn't stop until headlights cut through the trees. A car parked at the edge of the road. Detective Miles stepped out, flashlight in hand. Anna, he shouted. What the hell are you doing out here? I froze. My chest heaved. He ran up to me, eyes scanning my terrified face. There's someone in the house, I gasped. He had Daniel's recordings. Miles raised an eyebrow. What house? I turned to point, but the clearing was empty. No cottage, no broken window, just trees and fog. It was gone. He drove me back to the city, saying little. I stared out the window, trying to piece together what just happened. The forest, the man, the phone, the map. Had I imagined it? At my doorstep, he turned to me. Anna, I think you need to rest. Grief can make us see things. I almost believed him. Almost. Until I noticed the mud on his shoes. Thick, black, the same soil from the forest floor. He saw me looking and smiled faintly. Get some sleep, he said. We'll talk tomorrow. When he drove away, I checked my porch camera feed. He hadn't arrived from the street. He'd come from behind the house. That night, I replayed Daniel's videos once more. In one of the final clips, he said something I hadn't noticed before. If Miles ever comes to you, don't trust him. He's not who he says he is. My blood ran cold. I clicked pause. Behind Daniel, barely visible in the video's reflection, was a shadow, a tall figure with the same build as the man in the forest. And beside him, I recognized a glint of metal, a police badge. The night air was still when I heard the knock at the door. It wasn't loud or hurried, just 3 slow taps that sent a shiver crawling up my spine. For a long time, I didn't move. The house felt too quiet, and the shadows in the corners seemed to lean closer. When I finally opened the door, my breath caught. Mark was standing there, alive. His face was thinner, his hair flecked with gray, but his eyes were the same sharp blue I used to wake up to every morning before he died. I couldn't speak. My mind screamed that this wasn't possible. I saw his body. I went to the funeral. I threw soil over his coffin with my own trembling hands. Yet there he was, breathing, solid, real. "Anna," he said softly, his voice breaking through the storm inside my head. I can explain. I wanted to slam the door in his face, but curiosity froze me in place. "You died," I whispered, almost choking on the word. "How is this even real?" He stepped closer, his expression filled with an unsettling calm. "It's a long story. Please let me in." Every rational thought screamed not to, but I did. Maybe because I needed answers. Maybe because a part of me still loved the man who once promised me forever. The moment he crossed the threshold, the room felt smaller. He looked around like he was returning to something he owned, not something he'd destroyed. "I had to disappear," he began, sitting at the edge of the sofa. "They were after me, Anna. People you can't imagine. It was the only way to keep you safe." I laughed bitterly. "Safe? You let me believe you were dead. You left me to mourn you for years. That's not love, that's cruelty." He dropped his gaze. I didn't have a choice. But his eyes betrayed him. They didn't hold fear, they held calculation. That familiar glint I used to ignore. I realized then that whatever he was running from, it wasn't danger. It was truth. I asked him where he had been, but every answer he gave felt like smoke. Shifting, impossible to hold. He mentioned fake names, foreign cities, a business deal gone wrong. None of it sounded real. I watched his hands as he spoke. They trembled slightly when I brought up the insurance money, the life insurance that was paid out after his death, the money that saved me when I was drowning in debt. He didn't flinch, but I saw it in the tightness of his jaw. "You used it?" he asked. "Of course I used it," I said sharply. "You left me with nothing but your debts and your ghost." He nodded slowly, then looked at me with a strange intensity. "Then I suppose we're even." Those words stung in ways I couldn't explain. Even? As if his faked death was some mutual misunderstanding. I wanted to scream, to throw something at him. But instead, I sat in silence. He stayed that night. I don't know why I let him. Maybe I wanted to understand what kind of man fakes his death and walks back into his wife At's life like it's just another Tuesday. Maybe part of me was still trapped in that old cycle of hope and horror that defined our marriage. When I woke the next morning, the sound of humming drifted from the kitchen. He was making coffee, just like he used to, as if no time had passed at all. I watched him from the doorway, the way he smiled at the kettle, the way his shoulders moved beneath his shirt. It felt hauntingly normal, and that normality terrified me more than his reappearance. Over the next few days, he tried to slip back into life as though nothing had changed. He fixed the loose hinge on the door, watered the plants, even talked about repainting the living room. But I could see the cracks beneath the charm. The calls he took in the garage, the messages he deleted when he thought I wasn't looking, the way he jumped whenever a car slowed near the house. One night, while he showered, I checked his jacket. There was a second phone hidden in the lining. Burner type, no contact names, only numbers. The latest text read, "Don't let her find out." My hands went cold. I dropped the phone like it burned me. Who were they talking about? Me? Another woman? When he came out of the bathroom, steam curling around him, I forced a smile. He looked at me suspiciously, then kissed my forehead like everything was fine. But I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound became a threat, every silence a secret. By morning, I had made up my mind. I followed him. He told me he was going to town to meet an old business partner. I waited 5 minutes, then took the car and trailed behind him. He drove to the outskirts, an old motel with faded paint and broken neon lights. He parked, checked his mirror, and went inside. I waited, heart pounding. After 10 minutes, a woman stepped out of a nearby car. Tall, dark hair, red coat. She walked straight into the same room he had entered. My stomach twisted. I couldn't see much through the curtains, but I saw enough. The silhouette of him hugging her, his hand brushing her cheek, lips meeting. It felt like déjà vu, like every betrayal replaying itself in slow motion. Except this time, I wasn't the naive wife. I was the witness. I drove home without confronting him. Rage simmered quietly beneath my calm. I poured wine, lit a candle, and thought about how many lives he'd lived without me, how many lies he'd buried beneath his charm, and how, once again, he underestimated me. That night, when he returned, pretending nothing had happened, I greeted him with a smile. "Long day?" I asked sweetly. He nodded, kissed my cheek, and said, "Just business." I poured him another glass of wine and watched as he drank it, his eyes tired, unaware that I knew everything. When he finally went to bed, I stared at him for a long time. This man who'd already died once in my world. I realized something then. Sometimes, death isn't the end. It's just a second chance to make the right mistake twice. And as the rain began to fall outside, I whispered to myself, "You came back from the dead once, Mark. Let's see if you can do it again." The days after discovering Mark's secret affair blurred together like a fogged mirror. Everything looked the same, but nothing reflected right. I went through the motions, pretending to be the wife who'd forgiven him, the woman grateful that her dead husband had somehow come home. But inside, a storm was brewing. Every word he spoke felt rehearsed, every smile manufactured. I could sense the lies breathing between us like a third presence in the room. I began keeping notes. Times he left, phone calls he made, numbers I didn't recognize. My once peaceful home had turned into a stage where I played the perfect actress. He still thought he could fool me, still believed he had control. But this time, I was 2 steps ahead. I was no longer the broken widow he'd left behind. I was a woman who had learned how to bury the truth, and maybe even the man himself, twice. One afternoon while he was out, I decided to confront my doubts with proof. I called one of the unknown numbers from his burner phone, disguising my voice. A woman answered. Her tone was soft, familiar, too intimate to mistake for anything business-related. "Hello?" she said. "Mark? Are you there?" I froze for a moment, then ended the call. My heart thudded painfully. The confirmation I didn't want had arrived. I wasn't imagining it. That night, he came home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I didn't say a word. I watched him eat dinner, the same hands that once caressed me now tainted by deceit. When he leaned back in his chair, I asked casually, "How's business going?" He looked up, startled for a second, then smiled that same charming smile. "Busy but good. Things are turning around." I nodded, forcing a soft laugh. "I'm glad you're getting your life back." The words had a double edge. He heard concern. I meant something else entirely. The more I observed, the more I realized Mark wasn't just hiding an affair. He was hiding something much darker. Once, late at night, I caught him in the study with his laptop open. On the screen were scanned documents, bank statements, identity papers, passports with different names and photos. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just betrayal. This was crime. When he noticed me standing in the doorway, he snapped the laptop shut. "You scared me," he said, his voice too steady. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Just sorting old files from before." He gave me a quick smile and brushed past, but I saw the panic flicker in his eyes. I didn't press further then, but I knew the truth was close, something that could destroy us both. A few days later, I visited Detective Morgan, the same officer who had handled Mark's death. He was shocked to see me. "Mrs. Parker, I thought—" "I know," I interrupted, handing him the photo I'd taken of Mark standing outside the motel with that woman. "He's alive." Morgan's eyes widened. "That's impossible. We had DNA confirmation from the accident site." "I don't care what the report said," I replied firmly. "He faked it. And he's hiding something bigger than an affair." Morgan promised to look into it, but his tone carried the weight of disbelief. I knew he thought I sounded hysterical, another grieving wife chasing ghosts. But I had proof, and I was determined to use it. That evening, when I returned home, Mark was already waiting on the porch. He looked relaxed, too relaxed. "You've been busy today," he said casually, eyes narrowing. For a second, I froze. How did he know? Did he follow me? "Just errands," I replied quickly. He stepped closer, his smile sharp enough to cut. "You were always terrible at lying." Something about his tone made my stomach twist. I tried to brush past him, but he grabbed my wrist. "Why can't we just move on?" he said softly. But there was menace in his voice. "We could start over, Anna. A new place, new names, just you and me." "New names?" I echoed. "Like the ones on your laptop?" His hand tightened, and for a moment, I saw the man beneath the mask, the predator who'd been hiding behind charm for years. "You went through my things," he whispered. "I had to," I said, meeting his gaze. "You're lying to me. Again." He released my wrist slowly, exhaling a shaky laugh. "You don't understand, Anna. None of this is what it looks like. Those people I told you about, they're real, and they're still watching." "Then why meet your mistress at a motel?" I snapped. He looked at me blankly, then smirked. "You followed me." We stood there in silence, both masks stripped away. It was a quiet war. No shouting, just two people who finally stopped pretending. That night, I locked my bedroom door. He slept in the guest room, or at least I hoped he did. I lay awake listening for footsteps, convinced that the man who once vowed to protect me might now be my greatest threat. Over the next days, the tension grew unbearable. I couldn't tell if he was planning to leave again, or if he expected me to. He became unpredictable. One moment affectionate, the next, cold and distant. Then came the breaking point. I came home one afternoon to find the back door ajar and the study ransacked. The laptop, the burner phone, and my notebook with all my notes. Gone. My chest tightened. He'd taken them. He knew I'd been documenting everything. When I confronted him that evening, he didn't deny it. "You shouldn't have gone through my life like that," he said, his voice eerily calm. "It stopped being your life when you faked your death," I shot back. "What are you hiding, Mark?" He hesitated, then said something that chilled me to my bones. "If you dig too deep, you'll end up buried next to me." For the first time, I saw the truth completely. The man I loved was gone, replaced by something darker, someone capable of anything. That night, I packed a small bag and drove to the cliffs where ID stood years ago after his funeral, when I thought grief would swallow me whole. Back then, I'd buried my pain in the earth and walked away. Now I was back, ready to finish what I should have long ago. The sea roared below as I whispered into the wind. "You fooled death once, Mark, but it won't forgive you twice." My phone buzzed with a message as I turned to leave. It was from Detective Morgan. "We need to talk. You were right. He's wanted for more than you think." The message stopped me in my tracks. My heartbeat quickened. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew one thing. Whatever game Mark was playing, it was about to end. And this time, I wasn't the victim. I barely slept after Detective Morgan's message. His words echoed through my head like a drumbeat I couldn't silence. He is wanted for more than you think. It confirmed what my gut already knew, but it didn't prepare me for what came next. I met him early the next morning at the precinct, my hands trembling as I clutched the file of photographs and notes I had left. Morgan looked pale, drawn, like a man who'd just seen a ghost. He laid a folder on the table, eyes heavy with caution. "Your husband," he began slowly, "isn't who you think he is." He opened the folder to reveal crime scene photos, financial records, and a passport under a different name, Daniel Holt. The man in the photos was Mark, but not the Mark I knew. There were records of money transfers to offshore accounts, connections to an illegal network that dealt in stolen identities, and a missing person case from years ago that linked directly back to him. My chest tightened. I had lived beside a stranger, mourned him, loved him, and then feared him. But I hadn't known I was married to a criminal. Morgan's voice cut through my thoughts. "He's under surveillance. Don't confront him again. We'll move when we have enough to arrest him." But I knew that waiting would cost me more than I could afford. Mark was unpredictable, and if he sensed I was working with the police, he wouldn't hesitate to disappear again. Or worse, silence me for good. That evening, I returned home to find the air thick with tension. The lights were off, the house unnervingly quiet. I stepped inside, my heartbeat matching the rhythm of my footsteps. The smell of his cologne lingered faintly, sharp and familiar. Then I saw him, standing in the doorway to the kitchen, illuminated by the dim glow of the streetlight. He smiled, a cold, calculated expression that no longer held any warmth. "You've been busy," he said softly, almost amused. I froze. He knew. Somehow, he knew. "Following me? Talking to the police? I didn't think you had it in you," he continued, stepping closer. "You always played the perfect wife, Anna. But now you're something else." I tried to stay calm, but my voice shook. "It's over, Mark. They know everything." He laughed, low, dark, unhurried. "No, they don't. They know pieces, fragments. But the truth? That's buried with the man you think you married." His words felt like knives, sharp and deliberate. He moved toward me and instinct took over. I backed away, my hand searching for something, anything, to protect myself. My fingers brushed the cold metal of a fireplace poker resting near the wall. I gripped it tightly, hidden behind my leg. "Why did you come back?" I asked, trying to keep him talking. He tilted his head. "Because I wanted to see how much you'd believe, and you didn't disappoint. You buried me once, Anna, but you never checked if I was really gone." The truth hit me like a blow. The staged accident, the insurance money, the perfectly timed disappearance. It had all been part of his plan. I was just another pawn, one that had served its purpose. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You should have left it alone. You could have lived your quiet little life never knowing. But you had to dig, didn't you? Always needing answers." "I wanted the truth," I whispered, "and now you have it." His smirk widened. "What will you do with it?" In that moment, everything became clear. I wasn't the same woman who had once trembled at his absence or cried over his betrayal. I was someone forged by loss, deceit, and survival. I didn't plan to run this time. I planned to finish what he started. He moved closer again, but I was ready. I swung the poker, connecting hard with his arm. He stumbled back, shocked more than hurt. I ran for the door, but he caught me by the wrist, twisting it painfully. The poker clattered to the floor. "You can't win, Anna," he hissed. "You never could." I struggled, pushing against him, but he was stronger. His hand went to my throat, not tight enough to choke, but enough to remind me of his control. "You think the police will save you? By the time they get here, you'll be gone, just like me." For a moment, the world blurred. The fear, the rage, the years of manipulation all collapsing into one single point of clarity. I reached for the nearest thing, a shard of broken glass from the photo frame that had fallen during the struggle. Without thinking, I drove it forward. He gasped, eyes wide, his grip loosening. Blood spread across his shirt, dark and blooming like ink in water. He staggered back, his voice barely a whisper. "You really did it." I stood there shaking, watching as he fell to the floor. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was silence. A silence so deep it felt like time had stopped. I had killed him. Again. When I finally called the police, I could barely speak. The story poured out. The lies, the fear, the truth about who he really was. Detective Morgan arrived with his team, their faces unreadable as they took in the scene. He approached me gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "It's over," he said quietly. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Not really. Days later, after the investigation confirmed everything. The fake identity, the criminal ties, the staged death. I stood once more at the edge of the cliffs where it all began. The sea below was wild, thrashing against the rocks as if it too was trying to cleanse itself of the past. I dropped a single rose into the water, watching as the tide carried it away. This time there was no coffin, no mourners, no lies. Just the truth, raw and heavy. Mark Parker, Daniel Holt. My husband, my enemy, my ghost. I had buried him twice, once in love, once in justice. In the days that followed, people called me brave. The papers whispered about the wife who survived a ghost. But bravery wasn't what I felt. It was exhaustion. A kind of emptiness that comes after you've faced the darkest part of love and walked out alive. Still, sometimes at night, when the house creaks and the wind moves through the cracks in the walls, I swear I can hear his voice, low, taunting, reminding me that even the dead can leave shadows behind. But I've learned to live with them. After all, you can bury a man twice, but the memories, they never stay buried. And as the final words of my confession linger in the silence, I know one truth above all. The most dangerous place in the world isn't a battlefield or a dark alley. It's a home built on lies. This, my dear friends, is the end of this story. Stay with us for the next one, and don't forget to subscribe for more chilling audiobooks.